abandoned, starving, alone. Max, a once joyful German shepherd, lay helpless in a dark alley, his body weak, his eyes filled with silent pleas for help. People passed by, some glanced, others turned away, but no one stopped. The cold rain soaked his matted fur, and with each passing moment, hope faded. But then, a single soul chose to see him, to care when no one else did. What happened next was nothing short of a miracle, a story of resilience, love, and the power of one act of kindness. This is Max's journey from despair to a second chance at life. Every day, countless animals around the world suffer in silence, enduring unimaginable hardships that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. From the harsh streets to the neglectful homes, many animals are left to face cruel fates without a voice to call out for help. These animals, whether they are abandoned, neglected, or abused, are forced to navigate a world that seems indifferent to their pain. The cruel reality for them is that they are often forgotten by society, left to fend for themselves with little hope of survival. Max, the German shepherd in our story, represents one of the many animals who experience this overwhelming suffering. His story is not unique, as there are countless others like him, animals who are discarded and left to die in the cold shadows of a world that has forgotten them. Max's journey, however, stands out because it highlights the power of a single compassionate person who chose to act when everyone else turned away. His story is a testament to the incredible transformation that can happen when just one person decides to make a difference in the life of an animal in need. Max was once just like any other puppy, full of life and energy. He was loved by his family and brought joy to their lives. He was a playful, energetic pup, eager to learn, explore, and bond with the people he trusted. For a while, Max was part of a family, experiencing the warmth of a home and the comfort of being surrounded by people who cared for him. But as Max grew older, things began to change. What was once an exciting, happy relationship with his owners slowly began to deteriorate. His energetic nature, which was once adored, became an inconvenience. His owners, overwhelmed by the responsibility of caring for him, grew frustrated and disinterested in meeting his needs. Max's training sessions were abandoned, his playtime was shortened, and soon his owners began to view him as more of a burden than a beloved pet. It became clear that they no longer saw him as a member of the family, but rather as a problem to be discarded. One night, in the dead of darkness, they made a decision that would seal Max's fate. They drove him to a remote alley, far from the comfort of home, and left him there alone. Max, confused and terrified, watched as the car sped away, disappearing into the night. The person he had trusted most in the world had abandoned him. For days, Max wandered the streets, lost and vulnerable. The world around him, once filled with love and comfort, had become a cold and harsh place. His once shiny coat became matted and filthy. His body weakened from hunger and exhaustion. He wandered aimlessly, searching for food and safety, but finding only rejection and indifference. People walked past him, some glanced at him with fleeting pity, but no one stopped to help. Max's suffering continued unnoticed, as the world carried on as though he did not matter. Max's plight was not unique. There are countless animals like him, abandoned and left to suffer without a second thought. Many animals face this cruel reality every day, but their stories often go unheard. The system is broken, and animals like Max are left to fight for their lives in a world that has turned a blind eye to their pain. But sometimes, just when it seems like all hope is lost, something miraculous happens. Enter Sarah, a compassionate woman who, like so many of us, was just going about her day, unaware that her life was about to change forever. On her way home from work, Sarah noticed something unusual. At first, she thought it was just a pile of garbage, but then she heard a faint whimper. Her heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively walked toward the sound. As she approached, she realized that it was not trash. It was a dog, barely clinging to life. Max, lying in the corner of the alley, was fighting to survive. Sarah couldn't believe what she was seeing. Max's eyes were filled with fear, pain, and desperation, but there was still a flicker of hope in them. Without thinking twice, Sarah wrapped him in her coat, and with determination, she rushed him to the nearest animal clinic. On the way, she whispered soothing words to him, reassuring him that he was no longer alone and that he would never be abandoned again. Max, who had suffered in isolation for so long, was now in the hands of someone who cared, someone who would give him a chance to heal. At the clinic, the vets were shocked by Max's condition. He was severely underweight, dehydrated, and covered in infected wounds. His physical state was dire, and his survival was uncertain. The vets immediately began treatment, but they warned Sarah that it would be a long and difficult road. Max was not out of danger yet. Still, Sarah stayed by his side every step of the way. She spent countless hours at the clinic, holding his paw, comforting him, and reminding him that he was loved. As the days passed, Max's condition began to improve. Slowly, he regained his strength. His wounds healed, his coat started to shine again, and he began to show signs of joy, something he had not felt in so long. The dog who had once been abandoned, lost, and broken was now on a path to recovery. Sarah's love and dedication had given Max a second chance at life. His transformation was nothing short of miraculous. But the story doesn't end there. Sarah's commitment to Max went beyond just saving him physically. She gave him something that he had never truly had before: a home, a family, and a life filled with love. She adopted him, vowing to always care for him and ensure that he would never again experience the loneliness and pain he had endured. Max, once an abandoned and forgotten soul, was now thriving, surrounded by the warmth and love he had always deserved. Max's story is a powerful reminder of the impact that one person can have on the life of an animal in need. It also highlights the broader issue of animal welfare. For every Max, there are countless other animals waiting for someone to care, to step up and make a difference. Max's journey was not just a story of rescue and recovery. It was a story of compassion, hope, and the incredible power of human kindness. This is why Max's story is so important. It serves as a call to action for all of us to consider how we can make a difference in the lives of animals in need. Whether it's through adoption, volunteering, or simply raising awareness about animal welfare, we can all play a role in creating a world where no animal is left behind or forgotten. Max's story shows us that no matter how hopeless a situation may seem, there is always a chance for change when compassion is involved. In the end, Max's transformation is a beacon of hope. It shows us that even in a world that often seems indifferent to the suffering of animals, there is still hope. Hope that one person, one act of kindness, can make all the difference. Max was not always the lonely, suffering dog that we found in that alley. Just a few months earlier, he had a life full of warmth and love. He was a young, playful puppy, full of energy and enthusiasm. His small tail wagged constantly, and his big brown eyes sparkled with innocence. Max was born into a family who adored him. His owners saw him as the perfect companion, a friend who could bring joy to their lives. Every day was an adventure for Max, whether it was playing fetch in the yard, curling up beside his family at night, or simply running around with the boundless energy that puppies are known for. He was loved, cared for, and part of a family who promised to be there for him forever. But, as is often the case, the innocence of puppyhood gave way to the reality of growing up. As Max matured, he became bigger and more energetic. His playful antics that once brought laughter and joy to the family slowly began to wear on his owners. Max's energy was no longer seen as an endearing quality. Instead, it became something to manage, something that needed to be controlled. His owners, once patient and eager to spend time with him, began to grow frustrated with his behavior. The training sessions that had once been an opportunity for bonding were now skipped in favor of convenience. Playtime, which had been a cherished part of their day, became shorter and less frequent. Slowly, Max, the puppy who had once been adored, started to feel like more of a burden than a beloved pet. Max didn't understand the change. He didn't understand why the people who had once cared for him were now distancing themselves, ignoring his needs and his longing for affection. His once bright eyes began to lose their sparkle, replaced with confusion and sadness. He couldn't fathom what he had done to deserve this treatment. But the signs were clear. He was no longer wanted. His presence was no longer a joy, but a nuisance. One night, when the darkness of the world felt colder than usual, Max's life took a devastating turn. His owners, overwhelmed by their frustration and unable to cope with his growing size and energy, made a decision that would change everything. They drove him to a remote, isolated alley, far from the comfort of home, far from the family that had once loved him. They stopped the car, opened the door, and without a second thought, they left him behind. Max didn't know what was happening. He had no idea why they had brought him to this unfamiliar place. All he knew was that the people he had trusted, the people who had promised to care for him, were now abandoning him. He sat there in that alley, alone and scared, as the car sped away, leaving him in the dust. His heart broke as he watched them disappear into the night, unable to comprehend that they were never coming back. Max was left in the cold, dark alley, confused and frightened. He didn't know how to survive on his own in this harsh, unfamiliar world. All he could do was sit there, staring into the darkness, hoping that someone would come for him, someone who would take him back to the warmth of a home. But no one came. He was alone, lost in a world that had turned its back on him. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, Sarah came into Max's life. Sarah was an ordinary woman, just like any of us, with her own daily routine. She was on her way home from work, her mind preoccupied with the usual thoughts of her day, what to make for dinner, the errands she needed to run, and the quiet evening that awaited her. But as she walked down the street, something unusual caught her eye. At first, she thought it was just a pile of trash, an old bag, some discarded wrappers. But as she took a closer look, something stopped her in her tracks. A faint whimper, a soft, desperate sound pierced the air. It was a sound so small yet so filled with pain that it instantly tugged at her heart. Sarah froze. Her heart raced, her instincts kicked in, and she knew she had to investigate. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the alley for the source of the sound. As she got nearer, the sight before her broke her heart. There, lying in the dirt and the shadows, was Max, barely clinging to life. His once beautiful coat was matted and filthy, his body was frail and weak, and his eyes, wide with fear, seemed to plead for help. Max's body was trembling, his every breath a struggle. The pain in his eyes was unmistakable, and Sarah could feel it deep in her chest. In that moment, it was clear that Max had been through unimaginable suffering, and he was now fighting for his life. Sarah didn't hesitate. Her heart went out to him instantly. She didn't know how he had ended up here, or why no one had helped him, but one thing was certain. She couldn't just walk away. She couldn't leave him in the alley to die alone, as so many others had. Her compassion overwhelmed her, and without a second thought, she moved to his side. Without hesitation, she carefully scooped Max into her arms, wrapping him gently in her coat. The cold night air seemed to chill her to the bone, but her focus was entirely on the dog in her arms. He was weak, his body shaking from both the cold and the trauma he had endured. But as Sarah held him close, he seemed to find some small comfort in her warmth. For the first time in what seemed like forever, Max felt the embrace of kindness. As she cradled him against her chest, Sarah spoke softly to him, her voice calm and soothing. She whispered promises that he would never be alone again, that he would be loved and cared for, and that the suffering he had endured would come to an end. Max, whose eyes had once been filled with fear and despair, now showed the faintest flicker of hope. The warmth of Sarah's touch, the sound of her gentle voice, and the soft rhythm of her heartbeat all seemed to tell Max that things were about to change. The darkness he had known for so long was beginning to fade, replaced by the light of compassion and love. Sarah's heart was racing as she rushed Max to the nearest animal clinic. Every step she took, she was filled with a sense of urgency, knowing that time was of the essence. She could feel Max's frail body in her arms, and the weight of responsibility pressed on her. She had no idea what kind of shape Max was in, but she knew that she couldn't waste a moment. On the way to the clinic, Sarah kept talking to him, offering reassurances, even though she wasn't sure if he could hear her. She told him everything would be okay, that he was safe now, that he had a future to look forward to. And with each word, she could feel a small shift in Max. His trembling body seemed to relax just a little bit, and his breathing, which had been shallow and erratic, became more steady. For the first time in what felt like ages, Max wasn't alone. He had found someone who cared, someone who would help him. As Sarah finally reached the clinic, she was exhausted, but her heart swelled with hope. She knew that Max was in good hands now. She had done everything she could to get him the help he so desperately needed, and she knew that, with time, he would heal. But most importantly, Sarah had given him something far more precious than medical care. She had given him a second chance at life. Max's eyes, once filled with fear, now held the tiniest glimmer of hope. When Max was brought into the clinic, the staff was taken aback by his condition. He was in a dire state, severely underweight, his ribs visible beneath his matted fur, and his once vibrant coat now dull and ragged. His eyes, though still filled with a faint glimmer of hope, were sunken, betraying the toll that hunger, fear, and neglect had taken on him. He was dehydrated, his body desperately crying out for nourishment and care. His wounds, old and infected, were a clear sign of the pain he had endured for far too long. The clinic staff wasted no time, immediately starting treatment to stabilize him, though they knew Max's survival was uncertain. His body was frail, and the injuries he had suffered were serious. Max's fate was hanging in the balance, but Sarah wasn't going to leave him now. She had been with him since she found him in that alley, and she wasn't going to abandon him when he needed her the most. Every step of the way, Sarah stayed by his side. She watched anxiously as the vets worked to stabilize him, giving him fluids to hydrate him and administering medications to treat his infections. She was there, in the waiting room, pacing back and forth, praying for Max to pull through. She knew it would be a long road, but she also knew that Max deserved that chance. The chance to live, to be loved, and to heal. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah remained a constant presence in Max's life. She visited him every day, sitting by his side, speaking to him in soothing tones, and gently petting him. Slowly, very slowly, Max began to show signs of improvement. At first, it was small things. A slight wag of his tail when he heard her voice, a flicker of recognition in his eyes when she entered the room. These tiny gestures filled Sarah with a sense of hope. They were signs that he was coming back to life, that the trauma he had endured was beginning to fade, replaced by the comfort of love and care. The clinic staff, too, were amazed at Max's progress. His wounds, once infected and raw, began to heal, the infection slowly clearing up under the constant care he received. His body, once weak and frail, started to gain weight as he was fed nutritious meals and given the rest he needed to regain his strength. Max's coat, which had been a tangled mess of filth, began to shine again, the thick fur becoming soft and healthy once more. As the weeks passed, Max grew stronger, his movements less sluggish, his demeanor more lively. He began to play again, a spark of joy returning to his eyes, a joy that had been lost during his time in the alley, when the world seemed to have abandoned him. But it wasn't just Max's physical recovery that amazed everyone. It was the transformation of his spirit. The Max who had once been a shadow of himself, curled up in the corner of an alley, was now a happy, playful dog who had learned to trust again. He was no longer the broken animal who had feared for his life every day. He was a dog full of life and energy, excited to greet the world around him. The tail that had once been limp now wagged with excitement. The eyes that had been filled with pain and fear now sparkled with hope and happiness. Max was finally finding the joy he had once lost, and it was all thanks to Sarah. Sarah, too, was changing. The woman who had walked into the alley and rescued Max had become so much more than a savior. She had become his family, his protector, and his best friend. Sarah had shown Max what it meant to be loved again, and in return, Max had shown her the true meaning of unconditional love and loyalty. Their bond had grown stronger with each passing day, a bond that went beyond rescue and recovery. It was a bond built on trust, compassion, and a shared journey of healing. In time, the decision that Sarah had been dreading became clear. Max wasn't just a dog she had saved. He was now a part of her life, a part of her heart. So, with a heart full of love and commitment, Sarah made the decision to adopt Max. She knew that she was ready to provide him with the love and care he had always deserved, and she vowed to be there for him for the rest of his life. Sarah didn't just save Max physically, she gave him a reason to live again. She gave him a future, one where he would never have to face the darkness alone. Max's transformation from a broken, abandoned dog to a happy, healthy companion is nothing short of miraculous. His story is a testament to the power of love and compassion. It shows us that no matter how far someone or something has fallen, there is always hope. And when that hope is nurtured by kindness, miracles can happen. Max's story is more than just one dog's journey from pain to healing. It is a powerful reminder of the incredible impact that compassion can have on the lives of those who are suffering. One simple act of kindness, whether it's rescuing an animal, offering a helping hand, or simply showing love, can change a life forever. When Sarah found Max, she didn't just save him from physical harm, she gave him a reason to live again. She reminded him that there is still goodness in the world, that there are people who care, and that every living being deserves to be treated with love and respect. But as heartwarming as Max's transformation is, it is also a painful truth that there are countless animals just like him. Animals who have been abandoned, neglected, or mistreated. They wait in shelters, on the streets, or in the shadows, hoping for a miracle, for someone to notice their pain and give them a second chance. The difference between survival and suffering, between despair and hope, often comes down to the compassion of a single person. While Max's story had a happy ending, many animals are still waiting for their own story of rescue, healing, and love. If Max's story has moved you, consider how you can make a difference. There are so many ways to help, even if you can't physically adopt an animal. You can volunteer at a local animal shelter, where your time and care can make a huge impact on the lives of animals who desperately need it. If you are able, consider adopting a rescue animal, offering them a loving home and a fresh start. But even if adopting or volunteering isn't an option, you can still contribute to the cause by spreading awareness about animal welfare. Share stories like Max's, talk to friends and family about the importance of treating animals with kindness, and educate others about the ways they can help. Together, we can create a world where no animal has to suffer alone. It is within our power to make a difference, to be the change that animals like Max need. Let's all strive to be the person who offers a helping hand to an animal in need, the person who chooses compassion over indifference, and the person who believes that every creature, no matter how small, deserves a chance to live a life filled with love and care. Max's story is a testament to the transformative power of love and kindness. It reminds us that no act of compassion is too small and that, together, we can make the world a better place for animals everywhere. Let's not let another animal suffer in silence. The change begins with us. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch Max's incredible journey. His story is a powerful reminder of the difference one person can make in the life of an animal in need, and we hope it has inspired you to believe in the power of compassion. If Max's story has touched your heart, please consider showing your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. By doing so, you'll help us spread more stories of hope, resilience, and transformation, stories that remind us all of the good in the world. We believe that everyone can make a difference, no matter how big or small, and that even the smallest act of kindness can have a lasting impact. Whether it's adopting a pet, volunteering at a shelter, or simply offering a moment of care to an animal in need, you have the power to create change. Be the person who makes that change. Max's journey didn't end with his rescue. It was only the beginning of a new chapter filled with love, healing, and joy. You too can be part of a story like his. Together, we can create a world where animals no longer suffer in silence, where every creature has a chance to experience kindness and care. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. We hope to see you in our next video, where we'll continue to share more inspiring stories and messages of hope. Until then, remember, kindness is contagious, and it's up to us to lead the way.